All right, jumping now to, speaking of opportunities to jumping now to risers and fallers from the Senior Bowl. We did a decent amount of Senior Bowl coverage during the week, but we really didn't want to have major takeaways until we reviewed the All-22, both from the game and from the practices, because I feel like it's easy. A couple routes, couple one-on-ones. You haven't seen football in a while. It's tough, man. It's tough.
I saw like 3 Jamie Newman throws the first day, and I was like, I'm back. And then he looked like shit the rest of the week. So.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and go. We're going to go position by position, riser, faller. I also added some honorable mentions here. Maybe not risers, but like guys who played really well, and that's a good sign for their stock. Quarterback.
I mean, they still rose. Like they still just highlighting the biggest risers.
Yeah, biggest risers. Excuse me. Quarterback riser, Kellen Mond.
Yeah, it wasn't a great. Like Mac Jones was fine. If he went there,
it'd be tough to rise with his current position.
I was gonna say he went there, thought of kind of as that fringe first rounder, like if some of you are desperate, take him in the first round. And I don't think he was anything, he didn't look like anything special there. And I don't think he looked necessarily bad there either. Like it was just kind of solid quarterback play. The kind of like you weren't expecting high-end play and you didn't necessarily deliver at high-end play. So his stock didn't really move. But Kellen Mond to me, I thought looked just kind of the most steady throughout the week and then made some real deal NFL throws in the actual game itself. Like when the chips were kind of down, you could actually get hit in practice. He looked the best of the bunch. He had a 91.5 passing rate in the game, had the most big-time throws in the practices, the live sessions of the practices throughout the week. I thought his ability to work the middle of the field was the most impressive of any quarterback in attendance. Now, the rest of his game, I'm still not completely sold on, but I went in with a low opinion on Kellen Mond as why he would be a riser to me. I still think third round's probably a little rich, but I could see him then coming off the board after what he did there, somewhere in that third, fourth range.
Faller, you have listed here Jamie Newman of Georgia, but he wore the Wake Forest helmet all week. I don't think he ever got his Georgia helmet because he transferred and then obviously opted out for the 2020 season. The game was bad. Took 5 sacks? It was bad. It was hard to watch almost. And I think, but how much, before you talk about his, he was a faller this week, obviously didn't perform well. How much of this though is just him having to knock rust off? Like having to like come back to football this way, I feel like had to have been insane.
That's what I was saying, I think last week. I don't know when I said it, but Newman has to, like the biggest regret of any opt-out has to be Jamie Newman of anyone. Because
he probably, he did it for the right reasons. Like you hear him talk about why he opted out and the health concerns and all that stuff. Like it makes sense, but like it's unfortunate. I think someone reached out to me recently and said, "Hey, how can you have in the draft guide a con that a guy is opting out of the season? Like that's not his fault." Like, well, but the con is the realism. The con is you didn't see him play. It's just like getting hurt. It's not a con that he got hurt. It's a con that we just didn't get to see him play as much. You know, and there's obviously some tied to like re-injury risk and stuff like that. But with opting out, it's like the con is the fact that you just didn't get to see him play football. And his reasoning was obviously valid, but it's just unfortunate the situation we're in.
And especially when it's a position like quarterback, where quarterback is you're performing. It's not like it's not like a skill you can develop necessarily on your own, like reading a defense. You're not gonna align 22 guys when you're at Exos, training all fall. You're just not gonna have that sort of situation. So that to me, him showing up there, looking rusty, it was never gonna look good, but it was even worse necessarily than I even thought. Like I said, he had 6 turnover-weighted plays in practice. That was easily the most of any quarterback in attendance, and then the lowest grade in the game as well.
I mean, and also you have to think about the defense. The defense only can play cover 1, cover 2, or cover 3.
That's the thing. It's like it's not super complicated. You should be quick. You should be at least quick, and he was not.
That's tough, man. That's tough. Unfortunate for Jamie Newman. Jumping to running back, there's an obvious answer here. I don't even know if he plays running back in the NFL, but Demetric Felton, UCLA wide receiver, raving about him. Obviously looked really, really good in the one-on-ones. Made that quick transition to playing running back, dropping some weight, playing receiver, and looking good, specifically against press coverage. And people forget he was a former 4-star wide receiver. He was a 4-star wideout and went to UCLA, played wide receiver mostly in the slot in 2018, and has played running back over 300 snaps in each of the 2019 and 2020 seasons in the backfield. But I love that he's making this transition back to being this kind of slot receiver type. I don't know if it's necessarily going to boost him into like high day 2, but I still feel really confident about him as a round 3, round 4 player.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is that he showed up 189 pounds. Basically saying, I'm not a running back anymore. You're not going to play running back in the
They still gave him some snaps there, though.
They did, nice. But like he came and said, I'm a wide receiver. It honestly looked pretty good. Like if we're just comparing him to wide receivers, he had the 5th highest grade in the one-on-ones of any wide receiver.
That's awesome.
And was, winning at all levels of the field. I think he had the second highest top speed of any guy with their whatever tracking chips they use there. I don't know how that works, but he had the second highest one. So that's always a good thing to be on the higher end of that.
They inject them.
And he's shifty as can be, man. Like his suddenness in his routes and getting off the line of scrimmage was very impressive. And so I think he can be kind of that, if you're a creative offense coordinator and you have a role where a guy alternates in terms of like jet sweeps, slot, backfields, that sort of thing, he can be that. If we're talking about just in terms of compared to the slot receivers, I still believe, though, he's like, if you just want to play him as a slot receiver, I think he's one of the better ones in this class from what we've seen from him.
Yeah. I was watching a lot of Elijah Moore before the podcast. I really do like him as a slot type, too. That's another slot receiver I like in this class.
He's awesome.
All right, wide receiver, riser, Cade Johnson, the South Dakota State receiver.
And no faller for running back. Because
sorry.
Like running back almost is never a riser.
How can you fall at the Senior Bowl as a running back? That's very difficult.
You don't do anything.
Wide receiver, Cade Johnson, South Dakota State. I think he had one of the highest win rates in the one-on-ones, and I have two honorable mentions here. Josh Palmer and Amari Rodgers. I thought both those guys impressed me more than I thought they would going in.
I will say there was no guy who last year it was the guy.
KJ Hill.
KJ Hill was Mims and Hill.
Yeah.
Or just Denzel Mims and KJ. Why does KJ Hill not sound right to me? KJ Hill.
I think it's KJ Hill.
Yeah. Ohio State wide receiver. They were just like
different.
Their own class. 2 years ago, Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, both those guys just like didn't lose. No one like that, I don't think, in this year's class, where it was just like, damn, they're putting on a clinic. I don't think any of the guys rose to that level of impressiveness. Cade Johnson, to me, though, legitimate speed. Like, really popped off the tape the way he could get off the line of scrimmage and then just get down the football field. A guy who's undersized is going to need to be, I think he's 186 pounds, is going to need that to be part of his repertoire. But he ended up, like I said, the highest grade of any guy in the one-on-ones so far over the course of the week.
Yeah, he looks really good. That's another guy, too, that I think in the slot, though, right? I don't see him as an outside guy. He's a little bit smaller. But Josh Palmer, too, though, I thought he got off press really well. I thought when he could get in a straight line, he looked fast. Amari Rodgers, I was having doing multiple radio hits about the Senior Bowl. I kept on saying, like, this is a guy that in the slot, again, you feel really confident about his hands. You feel confident about him, winning at the intermediate level, short and intermediate levels. And I do think that's an undervalued piece of an offense right now. Finding a legitimate slot receiver that consistently creates separation. I mean, this is a league where 2 years ago, Seth Roberts was like starting for NFL teams in the slot. Like, you're not getting plus production from your slot receiver if he's not a guy that can create separation, that can move the chains consistently.
I still say, man, Amari Rodgers, 5'9", 211. Someone put him at running back.
Dude, I'm here for it. Faller, Sage, Surratt, the Wake Forest kid. I mean, Chaz Surratt didn't look all that good either, to be honest. And he came in with 30-inch arms. Both the Surratt brothers did not show up to Mobile as expected.
Man, how much does Chaz hate Sage? Because Chaz Surratt, 30-inch arms. Sage, 32-inch arms. That's got to be tough. They're playing the wrong positions for that size difference. But Sage, he's not fast, man. He's just not fast.
And not jittery. He's not quick.
Not shifty. Not fast. Contest catch only kind of guy. Very good in those situations. It's not something I'm going to like bank on as what you're relying at the NFL level, though. I just thought maybe he came back and that's all he knew. He knew that was his biggest weakness. That's all he knew he had to do all fall was gain a little speed, get a little more juice. Showed up and still could not stack guys on any vertical route. So sadly, Sage is kind of a one-trick pony, and that trick is not the most valuable of tricks.
Tight end riser here is Trey McKitty, the Georgia tight end. He won 67% of his one-on-ones. He also had that nice one-handed snag in a team drill for Mac Jones.
Really good hands. He had the most catches actually throughout the practices over the course of the week. I think just solid. Like none of the tight ends were. I thought this is bad to say. Like last year's tight end class honestly looked more impressive in the one-on-ones than this year's tight end class.
That's probably fair.
It's pretty rough.
The best guy there is probably Hunter Long, and Hunter Long's not a guy that's like a legit separator that's going to impress in one-on-ones. Where Hunter Long impresses is when he's like in between two linebackers in zone and just like comes down with it. Yeah. Like he is not built for one-on-ones. And the faller you have listed here is the Ole Miss kid that I think a lot of people like, Kenny Yeboah, but did not have like a ton of success in one-on-ones. I thought people expected him to come in and dominate.
That's what he had to do because he's not a blocker. 6'3", 247. It's not going to be his game. He has to be, if he's going to be a starter for an NFL team, he has to be a pure separator. He has good ball skills. He made a heck of a catch in the actual game itself where he went up and got it. But terms of getting open, that sort of the shiftiness, the explosiveness it takes, he was not getting open. Great. I didn't think of the one-on-ones.
All right, jumping now to offensive tackle, Dylan Redunz. Big riser, man. He looked really good. I mean, he was kicked into guard and looked really good. I think Dylan Redunz moved the needle there in Mobile.
He was the best lineman in attendance. Like, not even really a debate in my mind. Like, he was excellent. I was very surprised. Was not terribly high on him going in. I thought, like, he still had a good deal of losses on his tape going up against, FCS competition. Like, I expect a guy at FCS competition, you don't expect him to ever lose. Like, he should just be winning left and right. But obviously, that was a year ago. Only one game this year. He did look excellent in that one game. Didn't really get taken advantage of at all, and then goes to Senior Bowl. And man, he's 304 pounds. It's on the lighter end, but his core strength is insane. No one was going through that guy at all the whole week. He was, like I said, the best offensive lineman in attendance. Really,
he never looked like he was
could go in the first round.
Out of balance. He was consistently upright, consistently keeping guys in front of him.
I think he could go in the first.
Honorable mention here, I added this guy, James Hudson, Cincinnati. I thought he had really good feet there in Mobile. He handled speed really well. I thought Hudson looked really good as well. Not sneaking into the first round anytime soon, but for a former defensive lineman, he was a former defensive tackle recruit from Michigan who transferred to Cincinnati and played offensive tackle there and played well to go to Mobile and have the success he had. I thought that was really good for his style.
I love Hudson 11-inch hands.
Oh, man.
Those are mitts. That translates along the offensive line. When you have hands that big, makes holding on to guys a lot easier.
Anti-Joe Burrow hands.
Anti-Joe Burrow. What was the guy? There was also the Arkansas quarterback that had to stretch his hands out.
Brandon Allen.
Yeah, Brandon Allen.
Another Bengal legend.
7/8 to 9.
Yeah, good stretch.
Threshold.
Faller, this one was concerning. Go ahead.
I was going to say, they have just when they do high fives in the Bengals quarterback room with Allen.
Brandon Allen and Joe Burrow. Brutal. Alex Leatherwood, Faller. I mean, him and I'll tease the next Faller, Deontay Brown. Both those Bama guys came in and just did not look all that great. Quincy Roche took his lunch. Quincy Roche took his lunch a handful of times. He got beat by some other guys too. I mean, Alex Leatherwood did not have a ton of wins in the one-on-ones, and honestly, it's a huge concern. He didn't look as fast as he did at Bama. I was definitely surprised by how he performed that week.
Yeah, he had the third lowest grade of any tackle in the one-on-ones, excuse me. It's not good. He just kept giving up the edge. Same stuff we saw against Ojulari, same stuff we saw against Caleb on Chason. Just guys with speed. He just flips his hips too soon and just gives him an easy window to the quarterback. And I feel like it's fixable, but at this point you'd like to see him fix it. I don't know. He does have the length. There's a lot to like. He plays really under control, but man, if you're going to draft him in the first round, you're expecting him to look better than that. So that's not happening, I don't think, anymore.
Biggest riser and soon to be friend of the podcast, I think he's coming on the pod either this week or next week, is Quinn Miners, Wisconsin Whitewater's Quinn Miners. He had the belly out. He was pleading with, I'm going to talk to him about the story. I have to bring it up. He's pleading to Jim Nagy after he broke his hand to let him play in the game. I don't think he was end up able to play in that game. But man, this guy, big riser, not sneaking in the first round. I don't even think he sneaks in the second round, but you could start to consider him round 3, round 4. When he went into the week, probably 6th round, 7th round type of guy.
Oh man, yeah. He had some blocks in the team session where he just pancaked guys 5, 10 yards.
Levi Wuzarike was getting hounded.
Yeah, just dominant. Had some awesome one-on-ones, 150% of his one-on-ones. Pretty good win rate for a guy who has not faced NFL competition. Has not faced guys at this level. He was facing 275, 60-pound DTs there at Whitewater that are just couldn't hold the candle to what he could do physically. So, yeah, he looked good. Deontay Brown, kind of the opposite. I'm almost surprised that he went there and actually did a full week of practice, because people were high on him after his tape at Alabama. Obviously played a ton at Alabama. And just guys who are not quick, guys who are that kind of phone booth guards, don't look good in one-on-ones. One-on-ones is not where you win. Mm-hmm. You win when you have help to either side of you, and you don't really need to necessarily worry about guys' speed. He had a 34.4 pass blocking grade in practice. Throughout the week, 23.4 in the game. Just... that's an issue. That's not where you want to be.
Yeah, man.
You're drafting him highly. And I think he was it Jeremiah's or Brugler's top 50? And it's just I'm not taking a guy. I think it was Brugler's top 50. You're not taking a guard that's that
Immobile, struggles with speed that much. Yeah, that's true. I mean, as big as he is, as exciting it is to look at him and think about him next to guys like Mekhi Becton or whatever, you need guys that can produce in pass protection. He did not show up. All right, defensive tackle. I think there's a handful of guys you could highlight as fallers here. I know you have Marlon Tuipulotu of USC, but I don't think Marvin Wilson played all that well. Levan Wuzurike.
They only invited like 6. Yeah. And Wuzurike, I could probably add to that.
Like in terms of like underperforming versus expectations, like I thought Wuzurike was going to come in and dominate. I thought Marvin Wilson was going to maybe look a little bit more like 2019 Wilson. But Marlon,
Wilson was fine though. Like there just wasn't a lot of defensive tackle talent there.
Yeah. And they played him a ton at nose. Like they were playing like you're not even like they were like not even shading him sometimes, and that was kind of interesting. But for the riser, Osa Odigizua, the guy who every time I bring him up, I have to mention, did his background for the draft guide. He has never lost a wrestling match in his career. He like went all the way through high school, and then like the last guy, they talked about it like it was fucking Rocky 2. And it was some guy from Hawaii, I think, and he dominated. Like he won again. Like, and the guy he was facing had never lost either. There was like 2 undefeated juggernauts, and Osa is just a monster. But he had a really good week. He looked really good.
He's good, man. He was, in terms of like prior opinion versus post opinion, one of the biggest risers of any position, because I think in that UCLA scheme wasn't necessarily set up to produce well as a pass rusher. Like he ran at least a lot earlier in his career and some this past season, a lot of like 4-point stance, head up over offensive tackle, and then like 3-man rush. And that's just like, you're not going to create a lot of pressure doing that. And then he goes to the Senior Bowl, highest grade of any defensive tackle in the one-on-ones, 93.7 pass rushing grade in the game. He is an ox, even though he's like 280 pounds. He might be the most stout of the defensive tackles there in attendance in terms of like his lower half. And he was on actually Bruce Feldman's Freaks list, I think, a couple of years ago, because he squats like 750 pounds. Like
he's a monster.
Legs are just insane.
He's also the brother of former Giants edge defender Owa Odigizua.
He's a 3rd rounder back in 15.
I liked Owa coming out too, though.
He's a much different player, like just the way they played.
I mean, they're not playing the same position.
280. That's usually well in the small end. I think he's going to hold up defense tackle like no problem. I'm a big fan of his game.
Nice. And then we talked about the faller, Marlon Tuipulotu.
Probably like a 2nd rounder at this point also.
Oh, really? Wow. That's a pretty decent rise.
Yeah.
Love to see that. All right. Edge defender. This guy, watching the one-on-ones back on Huddle, every single time you saw his helmet, he had the white Tulane helmet. He was dominating. Like he was winning every single time. Cam Sample, highest grade and win rate of any defensive lineman there in the one-on-ones. But the concern is still he's on the lighter side.
Yeah, so he's kind of still like a tweener. Like he's 278. He came in at 6'3", 278. And a lot of his wins were from the interior.
When you're not in that phone booth, like you said, with Deontay Brown, because Ellerson Smith, too, the other UNI guy that was there with Spencer Brown, they played him on the interior a ton, even though he's a little bit thinner. And he had a ton of wins, too. But when you're going against guys that don't have that speed and you're leaving them literally one-on-one, you see more wins that way. And it's a big reason why I think they played him inside anyway.
But still, Sample's like, that guy is well built for 274. Like he does not have a lot of fat on his frame at that size. And he's graded out really well, of course, his Tulane career. So that I don't think it's a fluke. Like I think he could be your base end / interior rusher. And like actually, there's a few guys that fall into that sort of category that were there. And I think by the end of the week, I think he was the best one. Guys like Chauncey Golston from Iowa. I think by the end of the week, I'd rather have Sample over any of the other ones.
Wow. Faller, Patrick Jones. There wasn't a guy in the one-on-ones that I think looked worse than Patrick Jones. It was unfortunate to see. And honestly, he went on the interior. He went on the edge. Quinn Miners put him in the dirt. He was having a rough week, man. He did not have a good week.
We weren't even that high going in. He didn't even make our top 100. Some people were calling him a borderline first-round pick heading into the week. That was not borderline first-round pick. And I think the other thing that's kind of almost hurt his stock just as much was he's 6'4", looks long on tape. He only has 32-inch arms, which is not – that's on the short end for the edge in the NFL, despite being tall. Like those are short arms for a guy who's 6'4". And so when like you're not executing your moves well and efficiently, like he kind of has over the course of his Pittsburgh career, sometimes it's because you don't have the length to get it done.
Linebacker, biggest riser, and I think everyone came away with this same take, is Jabril Cox, the LSU linebacker that formerly played for North Dakota State. No star recruit. And so we talked about this before the Senior Bowl, but I think we'll bring it up again. The linebacker versus tight end, linebacker versus running back coverage drills, those one-on-ones, you're not supposed to win. Yeah. Like, you're not supposed to win at linebacker, but he did. At 4 forced incompletions on the week, like, he had a really, really good time in the one-on-ones.
He was easily, like, no other linebacker had more than 1 forced incompletion in the one-on-ones, and he had 4. That's how, like, different he was. And I really liked his tape at LSU, man. He's not Patrick Queen from an athleticism perspective, but he's a much more seasoned coverage defender than Patrick Queen. I don't see any reason why he's not a second-round pick at the lowest at this point. Like, I'm a big fan of him.
The faller you have here is Patty Fisher, and
yeah, I
mean, when you got guys like that who are sticks in the mud in some ways, it's tough to win. Again, not only is it already hard, but then you put them on an island like that, and it looks a lot worse.
Yeah, Patty Fisher, he's been kind of, I don't want to say hyped, but like a name for a while ever since like he monster sophomore year back in 2018 for Northwestern. Big throwback type of linebacker, but he can't move. Like his stock it was low to begin with heading into the week. It's not even like he's not going to make the 250 for us here at PFF. You just can't do anything. Can't put that guy in the field out in coverage. 0% win rate in the one-on-ones. The minus 7.5 grade on like 8 one-on-ones, which is like almost a -1 every time. It's pretty bad.
That's rough. It's rough to see. Cornerback, one of your guys, Trey Brown, Oklahoma. He looked good. Physical at the line of scrimmage. I mean, I think everyone was like big on Aaron Robinson going into the week, and he had some physical reps where people got excited. But Trey Brown, best cornerback there in Mobile.
Oh, it was awesome to see. Trey Brown is not a lot of guys can hold up at 5'9" on the outside. You worry about them losing against taller wide receivers at the catch point. He had a pass breakup against Frank Darby, had a pass breakup against Nico Collins, had the most pass breakups of any cornerbacks in the one-on-ones, and had the most picks too of any cornerbacks in the one-on-ones.
Getting picks in one-on-ones is also dumb. I can't believe that.
Yeah, it was. He plays above his height consistently. I think he can stick on the outside. Now, I'm not drafting him before like end of the third. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna hang my hat on him being the number 1 cornerback still at that size, but like he's solid for 5'9", 188. It's a big dude at 5'9".
The honorable mention that I added was Benjamin St. Juste, who I think was a late ad out of Minnesota. He's got good length, 6'3", 201, and like legit put on a show in the game and late in the practice week. I thought he showed up as well. I thought he had a very, very good week. What's your opinion on St. Juste?
Yes, I agree with that. I honestly had like very limited exposure. He wasn't even in the first guide, but he was probably the second best cornerback there in the one-on-ones, and he has that body type that you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a 80-plus inch wingspan for a cornerback, which is ideal. And
Faller, unfortunately, Robert Rochelle.
I wanted to see more from him because he's got one of that like crazy pterodactyl-esque build. It's only 5'11", but almost 32.5-inch arms.
He was a freaks list, wasn't he?
Yeah, 4'3", 40 guy, legit makeup speed, just so sloppy though, man. Like he's just no technique, no feel for the game and the position. Just he didn't win a single rep in the one-on-ones. Man. Sadly.
All right, last position here, and then we'll jump to the Azeez Ojulari interview. Riser Richie Grant, dude. This guy's sneaking into the back of first rounds. Awesome. First round mocks right now. Firmly in the second round at least.
Yeah. Oh, he was awesome. He was safeties. Every other safety there looked like shit in the one-on-ones. Mm-hmm. It's like they're not used to guarding wide receivers in man coverage. They just aren't, except for Richie Grant. He looked good. Also played excellently throughout the week of practices and the full team drills. Real solid dude. Like he doesn't have any one trait that you're like, that's his best trait, but like can play any single position. Almost Malcolm Jenkins-esque. I hate giving guys the Malcolm Jenkins comp, but like that's who kind of reminds me of watching him, where it's like Malcolm Jenkins isn't the fastest, isn't the strongest, doesn't have the best, wingspan, whatever, but he sees the game and plays the game at a different level than most other safeties. That to me is very similar to Richie Grant, who's just dude's fucking good at football. And he had the second highest grade of any defender throughout the practices this week.
Faller is none other than Florida State's Hamza Nasruddin, who just did not look fast enough. Did not look quick enough.
The biggest faller in my eyes of any guy.
There. He had the length, he had the body type. I was excited about like what he weighed in at, but when he showed up in the one-on-ones, because they had him doing some cornerback stuff, and it was not good. And even in the safety one-on-ones, it was also ugly.
Yeah, just there's no quick twitch whatsoever. And like, I thought some of that on tape, like he never quite was that guy on tape, obviously because he doesn't have it. But like, I thought some of that was just like he's a pace player. Like he plays under control, brand football, doesn't miss a lot of tackles, doesn't get overextended. In the 1-on-1s, you got to like get on your fucking horse sometimes.
Yeah,
and he never. There was no horse for him to get on. He was getting on like a fucking covered wagon.
Man, unfortunate for Hamza Nasruddin. That's going to do it, though, for the Senior Bowl recap. Hopefully next year we do this podcast episode from Mobile, or maybe the drive back from Mobile, because I do not want to spend another Senior Bowl here in Cincinnati. I want to be in Alabama. I want to be at Beats.
I want to be in a post of Benjamin Albright at 2 a.m.
Yes. That's what I want. I don't ask for a lot. I just want to be in those posts. I want to be that guy. Yeah. We could be that mistake, to quote Superbad.